Y'all, so this white woman on Twitter made a poll asking who the most racist group of people is. And the options were white people, black people, Asians, and Hispanics, right? And mind you, this poll had almost 100,000 votes. It was like 91,000 something votes, right? And black people won by a landslide. Literally, black people had like 52 or 56% or something. White people had like 26. Hispanics had like 17. And then Asians, I think Asians had like 17 and Hispanics had the rest. Something like that, right? But the point is, black people had over half of the votes, right? When I see something like this, I'm not even joking. I'm kind of in awe. I'm not joking at all. And let me explain what I mean. I'm going to begin this discussion talking about America because I'm a black American, right? But I'm also going to talk about Europe and Africa and, other places because of the fact that I don't know what this woman is. She may be a white American. She may be a European. I don't know what she is, right? But then also, this is not just something that happens in America. This is like a worldwide phenomenon, right? When I tell y'all, when I see stuff like this, I'm in awe. I really am, because I'm not going to hold y'all. The devil works hard, but white people work harder. And like I said, first of all, let's begin talking about America. Let's pretend that this is a white American woman and all of the votes were from, people in America, whether they were white, Hispanic, or Asian, or whatever, right? I've mentioned before that I think it is like insane that white people have managed to paint this narrative of black people being violent despite the history between our two groups. Let's start off with how we got to America. White people literally went to Africa and abducted us and created chattel slavery, like quite literally, right? And then let's talk about what happened during slavery. These people beat us like animals, raped us, all types of stuff. Like, y'all, in fact, if I can remember the title of it, I will put the link up here, right? A couple years ago, I went down to Louisiana and I visited this plantation. And the name of the plantation is escaping my mind right now. But when I tell you this place was powerful, right? I did my research because what I didn't want to do is go on some plantation tour that was about glorifying slavery, because a lot of times white people go to these plantation tours because, honestly, slavery was the good old days for them. So they like to go there and basically, glamorize the entire thing. And that's not what I was there for at all. So I found pretty much one of the only plantations that centralized the experiences of the people who were enslaved there. You know what? I just remembered the name of it. It was the Whitney Plantation in Wallace, Louisiana, right? And the thing about this plantation was that there were firsthand accounts from the people who were enslaved at this plantation. And when I tell you there were some horrific things, like, oh my God, y'all, they had these big like plaques that were like engraved with people's personal stories, and the things that I read, like just off the top of my head, mind you, this was years ago, quite literally, but these things have stuck in my mind. Like, one person talked about how their mother literally dropped dead from exhaustion after she went into labor with them, because she was forced to pick cotton from sunup to sundown all throughout her pregnancy. Then she finally had the baby. She picked cotton up until she went into labor. Then finally she had the baby, and immediately they was like, okay, now get back in the field. And she dropped dead from exhaustion. Like, they worked her worse than an animal. Not even an animal, because at least animals get breaks. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody gonna work their horse all day, No, they worked us worse than animals, right? Another story, oh my God. I think somebody said, like the white enslaver stabbed them in the eye with a fork or something crazy. Like, there was some crazy stuff on this wall, right? Another person spoke of how they were beat because they snuck and ate like a biscuit or something, right? And then the wild thing is, first of all, that person was a child. It was a little child who snuck and ate a biscuit because I think it was a little girl. She was starving. I'm going to say she. I think it was a little girl, right? And the white woman who enslaved her beat her, right? But then, the wild thing is the little girl whooped her ass. First of all, how you grown and you got beat up by a little girl? Like, what? That's the first thing, right? But then after the little girl whooped the white woman's ass, the white woman went and got her husband, and her husband beat the hell out of that little girl. A grown-ass man beat the hell out of a little-ass girl. When I tell you these people viewed us as less than human, and I just said viewed as in past tense, but baby, let me make that present tense. These people view us as less than human, right? Now, again, like I said, y'all can go and watch that video and watch the whole, review. I really suggest that anybody who go to Louisiana make that drive to Wallace, because I went to New Orleans, right? And Wallace was like an hour or something away. Make that drive, though, because that was really a powerful experience, right? But let's move on, okay? Because the story does not stop at slavery, okay? Let's go to after slavery. After slavery, you see the first huge spike in the prison population. And if I can remember the video I made about that, I'll put the title of it up there, but I'm not sure I remember, right? But you may be wondering, why is that, right? Well, because white people needed labor. That was kind of the entire point of slavery. White people was too lazy to do whatever on their own, right? So they needed us to labor for them, right? So when slavery was abolished, suddenly white people were like, yo, what are we going to do? Because we not going to do no work ourselves. Clearly, we lazy as hell, right? What are we going to do, right? So they came up with this concept of prison labor, right? Like basically convict leasing. That's what it's called. Convicts can be leased out to do work. And that's still a thing to this day, but that's another story for another day, right? So once they came up with this, they then said, well, we need convicts, clearly, right? And that's when they started making up a bunch of random ass laws. Like that's when loitering was made illegal. What is loitering besides sitting there minding your own damn business? Like quite literally, right? But they made that illegal because of the fact that, well, what could African Americans do after slavery besides sit there and mind our business? White people would not hire us for jobs or anything. We did not have homes to live in. So we had to just sit there and mind our business. And suddenly that was illegal. We could be sent to prison for that and leased out in a convict leasing program. Now, remember, don't forget this. All of this is happening based on the fact that we are black. Like, these white people are going hard to make sure that black people stay a permanent underclass in this country. All because we black. Is that not the textbook definition of racism? Is that not? Like, somebody get me together, please, right? But then let's not even stop right after slavery, the Reconstruction era and all of that stuff. Let's keep going. Let's talk about Jim Crow and the Red Summer, when white people literally just committed a bunch of massacres and killed us. Like, y'all, when I tell y'all one of the wildest stories I ever read about was Mary Turner. That gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. I'm about to start shivering. Mary Turner was 8 months pregnant with her baby when this happened, okay? So I forget what white people accused her husband of, but whatever it was, he was innocent, right? But white people don't care about that, so they lynched him and killed him anyway, right? And first of all, that's a whole thing, because of course white people have lynched thousands of us, literally killed us in cold blood as a sport. Like, they treated it as like, oh, let's go bowling after church. The whole family will come. Oh, there's a lynching down the street, honey. Bring the kids. Like, oh my God, right? So again, her husband was lynched, and Mary Turner spoke out against this. All she said was, hey, my husband was innocent. So guess what? A white mob lynched her too. Then this is my thing. It's sick enough, sadistic enough to lynch somebody, right? Then it's like, okay, it's even more sick to lynch a pregnant woman, right? But then, y'all, like I said, Mary Turner was 8 months pregnant. Now, I'm sure most people know that a pregnancy is only 9 months. If you go into labor at 8 months, your baby is a baby. Now, it might have to go to the NICU for like a week for observations just to make sure everything's okay. But your baby is pretty much a baby, right? So this lynch mob, I kid you not, and you can look her up and go and read about her story. This lynch mob sliced her stomach open, right? So her baby fell out and hit the ground and started crying. And do you think at that point they were like, yo, this is a little too deep for me. Like, we're going a little too far. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now, that's a baby, right? No, somebody in the crowd, a white man in the crowd, stomped on the baby's head until it died. Like, what the fuck type of shit is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like mind-boggling, Stories like Mary Turner's are so common. That's the cuckoo part, right? Like, in no way was what happened to her any sort of anomaly. That was very, very normalized. I have made a number of videos about a number of different lynchings, and if I can remember some of the names of them, I will put them up here for you to go and watch. This vicious behavior that white people displayed towards black people in America for centuries, and I said displayed, but again, let me say display, because this is the present tense, right? This vicious behavior, first of all, it's not even human like. You know what I'm saying? It's not human like at all, right? But then this is the wild part. This is what gets me, right? Despite a long history of shit like this, somehow white people have managed to convince the entire world that black Americans are the violent ones, not them. And the entire world believes it. Isn't that like mind-boggling to you? Like, sit there and put that little peanut brain to use for a minute. Like, come on now, get it cracking, right? Can you please tell me how the hell black Americans are the violent ones in this situation? Like, I'm not convinced that like anybody believes this, because it doesn't make any sense. How do you believe this? How can you believe this? There is no way, right? But somehow, again, they have managed to convince the whole world that we are the violent ones, right? So then when I look at this poll and I see that black people won for being the most racist, I'm just like, this got to be a simulation. There is no way that we live in the world that we live in and that black people are subjugated by white people and Asians and everybody the way that we are. And somehow these people have managed to convince themselves, or at least pretend, that we are the ones who are racist. Like, what, bro? Now, like I said, I could sit here all day talking about just America, black Americans and white Americans, right? But it don't even stop there. That's the wildest part, right? Like, let's just take a second to briefly talk about Africa and how Europeans have done them and continue to do them, right? There is a man, what is his name? Leopold something from Belgium, right? He went to the Congo and killed more people than the Germans killed Jewish people. Like, quite literally. But nobody ever talks about it. Nobody ever cares. Now, white folks won't shut up about the Holocaust, but nobody ever talks about what Belgium did to the Congo and how they chopped people's hands off if they didn't get enough rubber and yada, yada, yada. Like, there was so much sick, twisted shit that white people, let me be specific again, I'm talking about Europeans now, because whenever anybody talks about racism, Europeans love to gas like, oh my God, why is America so race focused? No, I'm getting on your head ass now. There is so much sick, twisted shit that Europeans did in Africa, yet somehow when the poll comes out about who's the most racist, black people win. Now, this is the thing about white Americans, okay? I'm gonna specify white Americans with this, right? When it comes to like black Americans and whatever, right? They will use Africans and Caribbeans as like a buffer class, right? So they'll tell Africans and Caribbeans, and these dumbass Africans and Caribbeans will go right along with it, right? So they'll tell them like, oh yeah, like black Americans are the bad ones. I prefer you guys because you're better, so and so and so, yada, 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 right? And again, like I said, these dumbass Africans and Caribbeans will go right for that, because it's like in the same way that white people have managed to convince the world that black Americans are the violent ones, they also managed to convince Africans and Caribbeans of that shit. That's why you'll see Africans and Caribbeans often repeating the same white supremacist talking points that white people do. Africans and Caribbeans will sit around, oh, black Americans are violent, black Americans, they're uneducated, they're so and so and so, yada, 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 right? They'll repeat these same talking points, right? Because again, white people's goal is to divide, is to be divisive, right? Because then when you confront Africans and Caribbeans, you say, oh, because like I said, they'll be like, oh yeah, our immigrant culture is better, we're more educated, so and so and so. But then you confront them and you ask, well, what's going on with your home country? Where you from? Like, what's happening? Because the people in your home country not very educated. They not doing very well. It's a lot of crime. So clearly you're not no better than me, right? And then you confront them. You ask them, but let me ask you why your home country is so fucked up. Then it gets back to white people, because all of these Caribbean countries, these African countries that is tore the fuck up is the way that they are because of white people. But these Africans and Caribbeans have managed to be brainwashed by this shit too. Like, when I tell you that white people is working hard as hell and they doing a good damn job of what they do, like, I'm like, what is going on, bro? I just don't believe how white people have managed to convince the entire world that black people and let me be specific, Black Americans are the most violent whatever, considering their history and considering what they're doing to everybody else around the world. Like, somebody's whole country will be colonized and getting all their resources stolen by white people, but then they'll still believe white people when they say, oh yeah, like Black Americans are violent, or oh, Black people are violent. Like, do you not recall what these people did in your country and to your people specifically? Are you kidding me? Like, I swear some of y'all is bots, bro. Like, y'all cannot be real.